And welcome to today's episode, Meadow, part of John's Eclectic Photo Time Adventure, episode 18. The alarm clock had barely whispered its gentle chime when John stirred. The world outside was still bathed in shadow, the pre-dawn hour holding tight to the last fingers of night. Beside him, Miya turned slowly, eyes fluttering open, her face warming at the sight of John already smiling at her. Their mornings were often quiet, tender exchanges of breath and glances, but today held something more. They moved without speaking much, as if words might disturb the sanctity of the moment ahead. Miya tied her hair back in a loose braid, while John packed his camera, lens, and a small thermos of black coffee. They were chasing a sunrise. Not just any sunrise, but one over the meadow they'd discovered last spring, a quiet sliver of wild tucked between the sprawling rural roads and the gentle rise of the nearby hills. Their car rolled to a stop in a small gravel lot just beyond the edge of the meadow. John turned off the engine, letting the silence settle, broken only by the clicking of the cooling hood and the distant whisper of tires on wet asphalt. The air smelled of earth and moisture, evidence of an early morning rain that had only just passed. The two stepped out and stood side by side, eyes fixed eastward. But something was not quite right. The sky had begun to glow, casting a soft peach blush on the underside of the clouds. Yet the light was flat, diffuse. The sun remained hidden. As they waited, it became clear. The low-lying clouds, instead of continuing their usual passage to the east, were curling back westward, almost if they had changed their minds, following the sun rather than fleeing it. The eastern horizon shone with the promise of dawn, but the beams themselves were absent, trapped behind thickening veils of mist and cloud. Miya tucked her hands into the sleeves of her sweater and leaned gently into John's shoulder. "Well," she whispered, "the sun's playing hide and seek." John smiled and raised his camera. "Then let's find the beauty that isn't waiting for the spotlight." The meadow before them was bordered by an ancient barbed wire fence, the kind that had outlived generations. Most of the wooden posts were leaning now, some half swallowed by the grass, others missing entirely. Yet a few remained upright, proud and defiant. Around these posts, purple flowers gathered in thick clusters, their petals like delicate amethyst, waking to the touch of morning dew. Further along, in an open patch where the ground sloped slightly, a sea of bright yellow flowers danced gently in the cool breeze. The contrast between the regal purples and the exuberant yellows brought a kind of quiet joy to the scene, and John began to work, framing shots, adjusting exposure, capturing the interaction of light and petal, old wood and new life. The soundscape was as compelling as the view. Birds calling from the trees beyond, insects stirring in the brush, and every so often the hushed rush of a car passing by on the nearby road. It didn't intrude, rather, it blended with the natural tones, a low-frequency hum, like the bass line of an unscripted symphony. John switched to video mode on his camera, capturing the visual and auditory harmony. "It's like the world's humming to itself," Miya said softly. To the south, thick rain clouds gathered, gray and slow moving, yet no rain came. The contrast between the brooding southern sky and the softly illuminated flower fields in front of them was striking. Like nature itself was at a crossroads, undecided whether to weep or to bloom. An hour passed in a kind of dream state, neither of them feeling the minutes slip by. As the light changed, so did too the colors. Shadows crept slowly, subtly across the field, and John continued to capture what he could, his hands chilled but steady. Eventually they wandered toward another field nearby, just across a narrow trail overrun by clover and low grass. This new field was vast, far more expansive than the first, rolling gently to the south where the land met the tree line in the distance. The clouds above this field were darker still, but they held their burden. Here, the wildflowers erupted in greater diversity. Bright orange blossoms with yellow rims formed radiant clusters like miniature suns. Delicate sprays of white baby breath flowers offered soft contrast to the bold colors around them. Each cluster like a breath of lace laid upon the tall grass. Yellow-petaled, black-eyed Susans gathered in spirited pockets, cheerful even beneath the shadow sky. Towering above them, here and there, stood tall stalks crowned with vivid purple petals, swaying as if reluctant to let the wind pass unnoticed. John and Miya moved carefully, mindful of the damp ground. Their shoes were soon soaked, their pant legs wet from the knees down, but they did not complain. Every corner of the field offered new combinations of color, texture, and life. One flower caught John's attention. It was pale green, its pod swollen and nearly bursting, edges fringed like the husk of a cotton pod seed. He knelt and captured it closely, intrigued by its tension, so near release, yet still holding on. Miya walked slowly now, her hands brushing along the tops of the tall grasses. She looked out at the open field, quiet in thought. "Sometimes I wish we could just stay here," she said, "live in a little cabin on the edge, drink coffee, and watch the flowers grow old." John turned from his lens, considering the idea, not as a romantic whim, but a genuine possibility. He walked over and slid his hand into hers. "Maybe someday," he said, "but for now, we have mornings like this." The coffee was long gone. Only the faint scent lingered in the thermos. As the gray clouds shifted above and the wind began to pick up, they made their way back to the parking lot. Their steps were slower, reluctant, feet squelching in the wet grass. As they reached the car, they turned back once more. The field stretched out before them, vibrant even beneath the somber sky. It was a kind of beauty that did not beg for attention, a quiet, persistent blooming. They stood together for one long last breath, sharing the kind of silence only soulmates understand, not the absence of words, but the fullness of presence. And then, wordlessly, they got into the car. As they pulled away, a shift of sunlight finally broke through the edge of the clouds behind them, striking the field they had just left. Neither John nor Miya looked back right away. They didn't need to. The moment was already captured, not just in John's camera, but in both their hearts, forever. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Meadow, episode 18. Please join us next time for episode 19, Rodeo, part 2. Thank you. And presented here in the next following frames are screenshots to prove up that these are not AI generated video photos. On these is the camera, the lens, the date, time, and the person who took the pictures. Thank you again for watching Meadow, episode 18. And thank you again for watching Meadow. Please join us next time for episode 19, The Rodeo, Part 2. If you enjoyed this presentation, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. Thank you.